The winds of magic, called Aether in Eltharin, the language of the elves if you want to be hipster, or simply just magic, is the name given by magic users for the invisible currents of magical energy which flow across the world. This ancient interdimensional force is a form of harnessable energy that can be used to manipulate powers beyond those of the natural world. Its influence upon the world is often bizarre, unforeseen and random, just as the world affects it in bizarre, unforeseen and random ways. It can be said with a degree of certainty that magic will always change elements of the mortal realms that it comes into contact with, but it's difficult to anticipate what form this change will take. Magic bends and unbinds the physical laws of the mortal plane, and can remake all things into things and processes that otherwise couldn't exist. There are many conflicting theories among the different orders of magic as to why and how the random energies of the Aether fall into reasonably consistent laws in the mortal world. Most of those who study the phenomena agree that whatever and whenever the immaterial meets the material, some kind of hybrid of the two is created. When the raw metaphysical stuff of the Aether leaks through the chaos gates, it becomes perceptible as 8 separate aspects to those with the appropriate senses. The 8 separate aspects, made up of different and consistent colours, are known to the imperial colleges of magic, the magic training schools of the Empire, as the winds of magic. These are not literal winds, rather they are made up of the immaterial substance of magic, dispersed at different speeds and in different amounts. Each aspect of this refracted magic has an associated colour and is drawn to different things in different ways. Each different wind is associated with different kinds of spellcraft that have their own distinct flavours. Although winds is the most widespread term given to them, that name is not necessarily the correct term. The Magister alchemists of the Gold College often refer to winds as the etheric humours, while the Hierophants of the College of Light sometimes refer to them as the paradigms of magic, or even the world dreamings, as the shaman of the Amber College refer to them. The winds are experienced in many different ways, both among the sanctioned magisters of the Empire and amongst wild and untrained spellcasters of the world. Those who study and practice magic know the winds variously as concepts, moods, vibrations, fluxes, tides, spirits, forces, and colours. Aetherically sensitive people often feel magic in slightly different ways, depending on the nature of their particular magical awareness, and will often express their descriptions of magic in terms familiar to their personal experiences and cultures. Regardless of the differences in personal experience, it is worth noticing that the association of specific colours with the winds of magic is consistent amongst all traditions of arcane spellcraft. Although these sensitive to magic often perceive the winds initially in radically different ways, they survive long enough to hone these perceptions, and will gradually come to see the different winds as possessing distinct and consistent colours. The Imperial College's system of magic is powerful, stable, and successful, when compared alongside any other human tradition of arcane spellcraft. Its ideas have influenced even non-sanctioned and downright illegal magic users, like hedge wizards, witches, black magisters, necromancers and warlocks over the last few centuries. Before we move on, let's cover some of these rogue wizards, because I think they might be quite interesting. I think hedge wizards I'm going to save for a little video on hedge folk in general, because it turns out there's actually quite a lot on them to talk about. There's more than just hedge wizards. I'm assuming there's hedge knights and other stuff as well. So I'll leave that for another day. But basically they're kind of... you have to go to the Imperial Colleges of Magic to be a kind of legal user of magic, so that the government knows about you and they can keep tabs on you. Because obviously you can do a lot of damage with magic if you're just if you're like schizophrenic or something and they teach you how to use magic, you could do a lot of damage. So they need to kind of regulate who gets to learn magic, right? But hedge wizards are what collegiate magisters would call anyone who uses magic that they've kind of just taught themselves, and they haven't gone to any kind of college of magic to so they're not really trusted, and they could just be going around the countryside healing people or whatever, or just doing like primitive fire magic or whatever to get money. But yeah, it's an umbrella term that all kinds of skills and variants come under. Now, as we talk about witches, you're going to start to realise why these little hedge folk going around with their self-taught magic are viewed with a lot of suspicion and often persecution. The title of witch would be given to a hedge wizard who has survived practicing their fumbling arts without going insane or dying, and they have a broader repertoire of their self-taught spells to work with. And because they're not educated in these areas, they don't really know of the dangers properly, and often end up dabbling in areas that are best left alone. By merit of their ignorance as to the occult workings of the winds of magic, they often begin to use dark magic without even realizing it. As a result of trial and error, witches' spells are more diverse and more powerful than the petty spells of other hedge wizards, possessing elements of many of the winds of magic. However, witches that use the power of dark magic inevitably take a terrible toll upon their minds and souls. The corruption that can be dealt out to them once they start using dark magic like this can manifest in many ways, the more obvious ones being insanity, mutation, involuntary summoning of dangerous demonic entities, a growing paranoia, and desire for more power and knowledge. Not only have they made themselves easy meat for any witch hunter, or similar authority who hears a villager telling tales of the local word's strange powers, which is what they're known as in the Empire, but they have often endangered their very souls. Hedge wizards that survive practicing such volatile homegrown arts, using dangerous blends of magical energies, and succeeding in making binding or pacts with very minor etheric entities, are promoted in the eyes of the college authorities, although it is an exceedingly dubious honour. Colleges view it as a given that hedge wizards that avoid capture or death inevitably begin to practice more and more dangerous witchcraft. Once this process begins, not only do these witches become steadily more powerful, but they also become more dangerous. There is a growing willingness to intentionally harm others. Collegiate magisters no longer regard such magic users as just dabblers, but view them instead as spellcasters of exceedingly crude but increasingly dangerous skill and mentality. This is the natural danger of practicing any form of arcane spellcraft in the Empire without seeking the guidance of the colleges. As a hedge wizard, the longer you remain untrained and still experiment with magic if you're not caught and burned, the more likely you are to start using dark magic without even realizing it. Witches know a plethora of spells that they have devised for themselves or learned from other renegade spellcasters. Here's a little piece on dark magic for you before we go up a level onto the Warlock, which is kind of the next the next one on from a witch. Now, dark magic is different to what a Magister does when they make a spell, because when a Magister makes a spell, they draw upon a single refined wind, and then shape it and form it into a spell, whereas a practitioner of dark magic just grasps whatever energies are present, so it's a mix of different winds, and then forces them to conform to their wishes. They channel any available magic, bending the sorcerous energies to create a desired effect. Since the individual winds each serve a well-defined purpose, the dark magic user's technique usually corrupts the energy rather than tapping into some other pool of latent magic. Each time a spell is cast in this way, it damages the fabric of the world. Hence, spells created using dark magic are violent, disgusting and corrupting, reflecting the most dangerous qualities of the agents of chaos, because of course we are tapping into chaos energy here. The magic comes from the immaterium, this parallel universe that is attached to our world, made up of all the emotions and feelings of our world that it kind of feeds on, and it's like a soup of all these different things. Frequent use of dark magic not only damages reality, but it also presents an incredible risk to the caster themselves, resulting in a myriad of unexpected side effects. But the payoff for this is the appeal of the dark magic being the power that it offers, because they are not confined to a single wind, so despite their lack of education on the subject of spellcraft, they can use a few winds at a time, and then they get a lot more energy. But this also results in loosing strands of unchecked energy that manifest themselves in strange ways, for the spell itself is magic in its most raw form. Now, this results in the kind of corrupted environment that happens in these places where there's a lot of chaos sorcery going on, or influence of the chaos gods, because they do use this dark magic. So the kind of strange environments that you get in the chaos wastes, where space and time is just like loosened completely, this happens because of this effect that it has. And because it results in all these little bits of untamed energy bouncing around that are creating these different mutations in the environment, some people believe that this extra energy could be harnessed, and chaos or necromancers or whatever use it to forge terrible spells or blasphemous items. But others claim that it eventually coalesces, if it's left alone, into warpstone, and that's where warpstone comes from. What we do know, though, is that in these places the winds of magic are very strong, and so when you're in places that are rich with true Dar as in D-H-A-R, which is the kind of elven word for dark magic, they have spectacular effects, because there's a lot more that you can tap into in these areas. Can I also add that there is high magic, which only like the Slan mage priests, the skinks of the lizard men, and like high elves, and very talented people like that can use, which uses all of the winds of magic together in a similar way to this Dar magic, but it's safer and more controlled. But there is also something called True Dar, which I'm assuming is a more refined version of using the Dar, the dark magic, which doesn't kind of kill you as quickly, as in like kill the user as quickly. But yeah, they seem kind of similar to high magic. The main difference seems to be that when they describe it, they'll go and describe about the Dar as like, ooh, this savage use of the all the winds of magic, and then the high magic is just like in a controlled and safe, cool, justice way. You know, it's just kind of the adjectives used while describing them, as far as I can see, just from reading it. But if anyone knows more than me, just comment. Okay, well, here's a description for you. High magic is the harmony of all 8 colours of magic working in unison, and Dar is the colours working in discordance. So yeah, I guess that quote is quite useful. It's almost as if the high magic is like an ignition of something. It's quite controlled and measured, working in a mechanism. And the dark magic is just like an explosion. That's just destructive and chaotic, you could say. Also here it says that the foul magic used by the Chaos Dwarfs and the Chaos magic and the Dark Elves and Necromancers and also the magic used by the Skaven all comes under this umbrella term of dark magic. So yeah, I'm not sure what kind of precautions they take to sustain their lives, because it's saying that dark magic is detrimental to your health quite heavily. So I guess they're just practicing a more refined version of it, like the true dark magic, the true Dar. But anyway, going back to these unsanctioned wizards in the Empire, the last incarnation of this is the Warlock, of the completely untrained ones anyway. The Warlock is the most proficient. So I guess the Warlock has kind of stumbled upon quite a refined way of doing dark magic at this point. And they've not managed to blow themselves up by fucking around with the dark magic too much in an incompetent way. And they've managed to avoid witch hunters and stuff like that. Essentially, a Warlock is a witch who is very aware of the dangers of using dark magic, but does not care. In fact, he relies upon it. These vile magic users actively seek to study the ways of chaos, and to become proficient in the arts of summoning and controlling demons, often referring to themselves as demonologists. Since they are self-taught, and so much of their magic is based on experimentation, most Warlocks have unique views of magic and the world. It is individuality that makes it so hard for the witch hunters to root them out. Despite the many dangers, some witches survive without submitting themselves to the judgment of the imperial colleges, and in time grow in experience and strength. Using dark magic is immensely dangerous, even more so than using one of the refracted colours of magic. There is a little training a human can undergo to defend against the corrupting and physically destructive effects of using it. Yet some such witches grow to become ever more aware of the nature of the dark magic they are using, and through sheer force of will, and an ego of borderline or true megalomania, they manage to find ways to harness it with increasing dependability, apparently wrestling it into a semblance of submission. Essentially, Warlocks are successful and powerful witches who are very aware that they are using dark magic, but do not care. In fact, they rely upon it. Unlike all Hedge Wizards, or even most witches, these few are no longer innocent bystanders, dupes, or ignorant fumblers with powers they do not understand. They are fully aware of what it is they are doing, and actively enjoy the incredible raw power at their fingertips. Whether through trial and error, supernatural assistance, or even through rare instruction of another Warlock. Very rarely, in a legal secret society, or through finding or stealing tomes of forbidden knowledge, Warlocks actively seek to study the ways of dark magic, and endeavour to become proficient in cruel and destructive spells to further their own ends. By merit of the fact they use dark magic so frequently, Warlocks pose a very real danger, both to those around them and to themselves. They have towering egos, iron-like will, and are always very hardy physically. Because they knowingly and willingly seek out and have embraced dark magic, they also tend to be paranoid megalomaniacs. Few Warlocks are alike in terms of talent. They are generally self-taught and develop individualized spells and abilities. However, all Warlocks tend to fall in one of two groups: demonologists and necromancers. Now, that's the hierarchy of self-taught mages dealt with, but there is one kind left to explain that are not exactly self-taught. Here is the Black Magister. We're dealing with rogue mages here. This is a phrase used by the orders of magic and witch hunters to describe magisters who either go rogue, turning their backs on the articles of imperial magic, or who knowingly utilize dark magic whilst studying or after completing their studies. This is not a common occurrence, but a few Black Magisters are infamous throughout the Empire. Black Magisters do not have to have embraced the Chaos Gods, nor must they have begun studying the arts of demonology or necromancy. All it takes is for them to flee their order and refuse to practice and respect its traditions, or intentionally and persistently experiment with one or more wind of magic at a time. These traitorous acts will earn the Magister the relentless hostility of his prior order. Black Magisters know and accept that they have disobeyed the Articles of Magic, and have broken faith with their order. They have been instructed from day one as apprentices that breaking with their order is the most terrible and illegal act possible, and that using dark magic is insanely dangerous. These acts are against the spirit and letter of law, and are morally lacking. So if a Magister takes the rare and extraordinary step of starting to use these malign energies, he would either willingly embrace his new title of Black Magister, or reject any title whatsoever. Whatever the case, Black Magisters tend to look down on their old brethren as narrow-minded, misguided fools who willfully hold back from exploring the true nature and power of magic. These renegades tend to look even more starkly on self-taught, whom they consider ignorant and trivial dabblers, worthy only of contempt and destruction. Black Magisters who do not flee their order and practice their dangerous and illegal arts in secret would be among the most subtle and powerful of all Magisters to be able to do so without being discovered. They would probably need divine or demonic aid to hide their corruption from their peers if they reside in the college buildings of Altdorf. One who did such a thing as this was the vilest of all traitors, Egrimm van Horstmann. Egrimm van Horstmann is the most infamous and perhaps the most dangerous of the Imperial College's few known traitors, and he is the White Order's greatest shame. There was a time when Horstmann was counted amongst the brightest and most talented Magisters of the Order. He was the last occupant of the Patriarch's throne at the Order of Light, before Vespasian Cant. In his day, Horseman was acclaimed as the youngest, most gifted Magister ever to preside over one of the Empire's colleges of magic. As he knelt down to swear his allegiance to the Supreme Patriarch, the Emperor, and the cause of the Order, no one guessed that his loyalties and soul had already been given over to a far more sinister master. As an apprentice chanter of the 8th Circle of the Order, Horstmann served under the late and respected Master Chanter Alric, the saviour of Epstow, who taught him many of the Order's ancient secrets. But all of the time he served with the White Order, Horstmann was praying to the Chaos Gods for the power and knowledge to surpass his peers, which explained his rapid progress through the ranks. By day, he studied the pure magics of Heish, and by night he pored over the ancient manuscripts devoted to the tainted laws of sorcery that the Hierophants kept locked away in its libraries. The demons of Zench had no doubt whispered their timeless secrets into Horstmann's sleeping mind, and his powers grew strong. For 3 years, the wicked Patriarch worked his evil. Seeds of corruption were planted in the hearts of many of the apprentices and Magisters, and many of the most promising initiates to the Order were lost in the shadow Horseman cast across it. Such was his skill at weaving wicked magics, Horseman was able to subtly alter many of the Order's rituals, redirecting their otherwise benevolent powers to his own ends. Most outrageously of all, Horstmann actually used the energies called down by the choirs of apprentices to work away at the vaults beneath the Pyramid of Light. Vaults that had remained sealed since the founder of the Colleges of Magic, Teclis of Ulthuan, had created them as a prison for some of the most terrible creatures and artifacts from the last great Chaos incursion. One by one, Horstmann defeated the vault's magical locks to reveal the forbidden things they contained. It's impossible to calculate the damage done, or the horrors unleashed upon the world by Horstmann before this evil was uncovered. The discovery of Horstmann's corruption is a long, morbid tale with a terrible ending. Before he and his twisted apprentices fled before the combined fury of Volkmar the Grim, the witch hunter, and those initiates of the order who were still loyal to its honest principles, Horstmann managed to free the infamous Chaos Dragon Baldros from its prison beneath the Pyramid of Light, and upon its winged and two-headed form, Horseman took to the sky and fled towards the Chaos Wastes. Reliable information about Horseman after this point is hard to come by. It is known that he set about creating a citadel fortress in the wastes, at the edge of the Screaming Hills. To these gleaming silver towers he summoned many corrupted souls, many of them being the very college folk his machinations had so perverted. Some legends claim the first to answer his call was sacrificed to create the dread Banner of the Withered Eye, slayer of men and symbol of Horseman's devotion to Tzeentch. Be this true or not, more power-hungry pilgrims arrived at Egrimm's towers, ready to sacrifice their souls to become apprenticed to the traitor. Horseman and his corrupted apprentices formed the Cabal, perhaps the most infamous of any group dedicated to Tzeentch. The sorcerers of the Cabal bow only to Horseman, and only because he is the most powerful of them. The majority of warriors who protect the Cabal are willing slaves to Horseman and his apprentices. They are ignorant men, desperate for the chance to learn a fraction of their master's skills. How anyone finds the Cabal to join it is a mystery, but once accepted, a sorcerer must swear binding magical oaths of loyalty to Horseman and his Dark Lord Tzeentch. Once branded with Tzeentch's rune, the initiate can never rebel against the will of his masters, under pain of being reduced to the state of a mindless spawn of chaos, which is what happens to humans when they are overloaded with chaos energy. Horstman's apprentices are everywhere, and nearly 2/3 of the chaos cults in the Empire are either created indirectly by agents from within his network, are controlled by his Cabal in some roundabout way, or owe discreet allegiance to him. Such plotting and scheming no doubt pleases Tzeentch, and he seems to have rewarded Horstman greatly over the years, making him his most favoured mortal servant. Suffice to say, Horstman seeks to bring about the colleges of magic under his sway, and corrupt all of the Empire's Magisters to the worship of his master. By doing this, Horstman hopes to attract his divine master's eye, and be rewarded with demonhood.